The other day I was on TikTok and your video came across talking about how you just celebrated 2 years of sobriety, right? Like just barely, like a couple months ago, correct?
Yeah, January 28th was 2 years.
That video really touched me. It really struck a chord for me. You know, I've had addiction problems in the past, and so that really, you know, hearing your story, hearing you share your story, and how authentic you were about it, I thought it was really, really amazing. I want to know more. You know, you shared some of the pains and the struggles that you went through. That you shared some of the reasons why you eventually led to that. But I want the behind the scenes of your sobriety story. You know, if there's stories that led up to you wanting to be sober, you know, if there was hard times during, you know, you trying to get sober. I want to hear all that. All that resonates with me so much. And so take it away, my guy. In what direction would you like to talk about your sobriety?
Well, I'm just, can I ask you, like, what, you said 15 years. I don't know if your audience knows that, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah, we were talking before. Well, actually, this summer it'll be 16 years. So we're coming up on 16 years now.
I'm going to reverse this interview right now.
Oh gosh.
Because I'm just curious, I don't know if you can just brief me. Like, so how old were you when you got sober, and like, what was the problem?
So I grew up in a very abusive household with a very abusive father figure. And so I turned to, at a very young age, around like 12-ish, turned to very addictive behaviors. You know, there was a lot of pornography. There was a lot of drinking and doing drugs, even at a very young age. And so that kind of ruled my life for the next couple of years until I was around 15. Your very common symptoms of being an addict, right? You try to go a day without drinking and you get massive headaches. You won't be able to see straight. You can't think about anything else, right? Or, you know, you watch a movie and you see someone drinking on the TV, and it makes you break out, and it triggers you. You break out in rashes. And so there was a lot of that going on. I primarily got into that, not necessarily to party, not necessarily to have fun. It was just a form of covering up the emotions. It was just a form of, I didn't know how to deal with these very complex emotions that come, especially in the teenage years. These substances, whatever they may have been at the time, whether it was pills or weed or whatever, it just covered it up. It just blocked it for a minute. It was like a pause on feelings. And so I was totally down for it, but it started to affect me. I mean, I lost so much weight. It was affecting my relationships, like with my parents, specifically with my mom, because my dad, you know, that's a whole different story. But it was getting me into legal trouble. I was in and out of DT, which is like a kid form of prison in Utah. I don't know if that exists other places. And so it just got to a point when I was 15, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I was suicidal. I didn't want to deal with it. And, you know, I felt like, okay, well, I either got to kill myself because I don't want to do this, or I want to man up and try to face these things and try to deal with it. And so let me tell you what, dude, you're on 2 years right now. I remember back in those days, like I couldn't even imagine getting to 2 years, right? Like the first week was hell. It was awful. It was the worst. It's the monster that you can't get away from. Anyways, did I answer your question? I don't mean to commandeer this podcast. And so did that answer your question?
Yeah. I talked to Little Texas a lot because he's also sober. He's been sober for quite a while. I think 10 years now. I had thought about getting sober a couple different times. I kind of like had done like a few different stints of sobriety for like 9 months and then for like 6 months. A lot of people say that they had great experiences with Savage, Party Animal, Bentley. Kind of circling back to what I was saying about Little Texas, you know, like the way he kind of puts it is just like, what are the net positives versus the net negatives? The net positives of sobriety just outweighed the net negatives by so much. It wasn't even like, when you look at it like that, it's just like, it's not even a question. It's just like the negatives were, you know, that I wasn't as reliable in a multitude of facets, like financially, being considerate or being like conscious of how I treat people. I would say like most of the trajectory of my non-sobriety was pretty average. Like I started drinking when I was like 14, 15. You know, I was taking whatever fun drugs you could find at Walgreens, like Corsetin, cough and cold, like whatever you could find in a suburban neighborhood. Like I wasn't doing blow or anything until I was like in my early 20s. You know, some people in college were doing it. I would just drink, but I was definitely one of the hardest drinkers in college. You know, out of college, going to a lot of festivals, just overdoing it to the extreme. I mean, I think I did like 18 Pokeballs. If you don't know what Pokeballs are, they're like quad stacks of ecstasy. I did like 18 of those in a weekend one time. I took like 24 hits of acid over the course of a weekend in Seattle one time. You know, I didn't have any problem saying yes, to whatever came my way. The turning point for me was just, it was a culmination of things. It was losing my dad to suicide 3 years ago. I came to terms with the situation pretty quickly. Like, I wasn't like, oh, like he doesn't love the family, or like he was in his early 70s. And I think that he still had plenty of time to go. You know, I mean, he thought that he had early onset Alzheimer's, and he kind of started having trouble remembering things. And my understanding of the situation is that he didn't want to be a burden. I think that he was still pretty far away from that. Like, you know, he had at least another, I would like to think he had at least another 5 to 10 years, like could have been here for like the birth of, you know, my first child or my brother's first child, or, you know, you know, you have to sit and wonder if like you had more time. So I have heard, and I think that even my dad said that, you know, you don't really become a man until you lose your dad, because, you know, for obvious reasons, you know, I'm like the man of my family now. I'm a man of the house. You know, my mom has since got remarried. I'm left with what he's already given me. There's nothing, you know, I have to figure the rest out on my own. That was a big moment. I mean, like, amidst very much on the rise with Pixel Terror at the time. And I thought that I had control of it to some degree. I was very much drowning my emotions by just continuing to do, you know, it got to the point where I was just like, I would just have a few drinks just to go find cocaine. Like, I didn't even want to go out unless I knew that there was going to be cocaine wherever I was going, or if I was going out with someone, somebody would have below. Like the alcohol was just a vehicle to start doing cocaine, almost to even want to socialize. Like, I want to be doing cocaine. I was like, this is not cool. Like, I was in a relationship that was pretty toxic at the time for various reasons, like myself included, very much so. I was actually like on a stint of sobriety for a good portion of that before I got off. And I think that I got off partially because the girl I was dating was younger. She loved to party. She was fine with me not partying, but I wanted to party with her. I'm not going to say that it's her fault by any means. I think that I made my own decision to like essentially relapse at that point. That relationship didn't work out. I still love the girl. We're on good terms now. Like, we were both very much doing our own thing. Reiterating, you know, the net positives, net negatives, you know, like for me, looking at how much time and energy I was spending on these other things that weren't pertinent to my music career. Like, even if I just was going out 1 or 2 nights a week, but going hard, you know, it might be another 2 days before I'm feeling like 100%. And then it's like all of a sudden 4 days of my week not being 100%. It's not optimal output. And when you look at it in the grand scheme of things, and, you know, like most people in the world, like party, even if it's like healthy or an acceptable amount, it still gives me the edge. I'm like, well, if I'm sober 100% of the time and I wake up every day, and you can't wake up every single day feeling like $1 million, like it's just impossible, you know, like, but at least knowing that there's a good chance that I will every single day, and like being able to crush something or another every single day. I've seen like these memes where it's like, you know, consistency doesn't always look like half full, or like it's not even every single time. It's like sometimes it's here, sometimes it's here. Consistency is just pouring something into the glass every single day. That's a massive net positive. You know what I mean? So I guess because I had the stints and I knew like what it was a little bit like, you know, I was like, you know, if I get sober like indefinitely, then like I'm going to look better. I'm going to feel better. I'm going to have more energy. And I don't think that those first few times that I got sober, I like was fully committed. And now now that I am, it's like there's so many things that I was just overlooking or just like using as some sort of crutch to like social anxiety or dealing with emotions or all of these things that I now have to like face head on. Now I'm like, if I go out, it's like I can have a conversation with someone, remember it, and it's actually valuable, and it's not just some like 4 a.m. cocaine conversation about like building an app that's never going to happen. Ultimately, it's been awesome. It's different. It's very like, it's generally more chill. Like I say no to more things than before, but I still have a great time when I go out. I still have like, great experiences. And to me, it feels like a weakness now. And I don't mean that like it's just not the case for everybody. There are plenty of people that can drink responsibly and like and manage their lives. And I think that that's part of what I've kind of learned in the program is that like if you have come to find that your life is unmanageable by doing these things, then you need to go this way. And I think that my life became unmanageable. I emotionally hit rock bottom as far as like what I could possibly like continue to withstand. And, more than anything, I just made the decision of like, if I want to have like a lifetime career in music, then like, this is the decision that I need to make. And I did. And I feel like more of a musician than ever.
What a ride, dude. What an adventure that you've been on. One of the big things that kept coming to my mind when you were telling us your story was, the price of your new life is your old life, and how that kind of was a reoccurring concept that kept coming up, right? You had to give up your old life, your old habits, your old way of thinking, all the way from ego to, the consumption of drugs to how you treated other people. You had to give all that up in order to forge this new life that you're going with Pixel Terror and with your art. And a follow-up question that I have concerning everything that you've been saying is I do deeply wonder how, because you mentioned how now that you've kind of left that stuff behind and you're saying, like you're feeling a lot better, you can show up to whatever you need to do on a daily basis more often, and you're feeling better. How does you being sober affect you creating music, right? Not just showing up, but the actual process of conveying your soul through music. Like how does being sober affect that?
I think that that's an important question because I think a lot of people think that they can't have the same emotional material or like just be able to tap into that raw part of creating. I think that is the furthest thing from the truth. Yeah, if you're a fucking train wreck, it's easy to find problems and things to write about, but it's like when you're not a train wreck, you're still going to have life thrown at you and you're still going to have to write about. And because you're facing it like raw, it actually hits even harder. Generally speaking, just showing up and like executing without question better. I'm more honed in. Like there's only been a few times where I wrote something super lit. There have been a few times when I was in Europe on tour, I wrote this song like blacked out. I was going from city to city on this little like mini Europe tour. I wrote this song on a train, super lit, but that's like very seldom. The over under for like day-to-day creativity is like it's not even comparable, honestly. For me and with my experience and a lot of people in my circle too, who have seen like what I've been able to accomplish in just these two and a half years, it was just weighing the net positives to the net negatives. And like, it wasn't even a contest. I heard Mod's son, who's sober, I heard him say that basically like, when you have someone who is an addict and you divert your attention to the things that can actually progress your life, it's like a superpower because you get hyper fixated on these things. And like, I've always had like a strong work ethic, but now I'm like using this, I guess, power of addiction, so to speak, on like things that are positive for my life. So I'm like, addicted to healthy habits now instead, like hyper addicted to getting more PRs in the gym, hyper fixated on learning, on like becoming better, on like better melodies, on singing better, on producing better, on continuing to learn, new sound design techniques and all of those kind of things.
As far as the logical side of me, that was the thing that convinced me the most, was that what is the net results of choosing to be sober, and what is the net results of choosing not to be sober? And I have yet to find a persuasive argument that says being on drugs or alcohol or whatever consistently is better for creativity, is better for health, is better for relationships, is better for business, is better. Like, out of you take all the categories that you deal with on a daily basis, what does being on drugs and alcohol benefit, or where does it take the cake of those most important categories? And I have yet, like I said, I've yet to find a persuasive argument that says, oh, it makes your marriage better because like it doesn't exist. If I had the wish of my heart, everyone would be sober, because I feel like there'd be a lot of problems that would leave. But I also like love free will and people being able to choose. And I understand that some people, they don't have addictive personalities like you and I do. And some people can function and can have a normal life with this kind of stuff. And so I still have to leave room for that. Yeah, I'm still, at the end of the day, I'm with you. I'm like, no one can convince me otherwise right now, at least. I still haven't heard a persuasive argument.
It would make things harder if there was a level playing field and everybody was sober. It's like, I feel like I have an advantage, at least to myself. Again, it's like, it's just not the case with everybody. It's like, you can be extremely successful and still have a drink once in a while, or whatever it is that you choose to do, I guess, so to speak. But for me, it's like, and the people that I'm, competing with, I guess, so to speak, if we want to call it a competition, for me, it's like, I feel like I have an edge, and like, why wouldn't I take advantage of that?
DAW Nation, listen very closely. This is not the end to this content. This was a teeny tiny little snippet from our full episode. You can check out the full episode in the link in the description. And when you go to the free episode, you can get a free pack over there. So go check it out right now. Why are you still here? Get out of here. Go check it out. We'll see you over there.